Welcome back to another episode of KPN Today. I am so happy today to be with Ethan Forman, as I am almost every week, but we also have a special guest, the new reporter at the Gloucester Times, Stephen Hagan, and he will be covering Rockport, Manchester, and Essex. Hi, Stephen, welcome.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Yeah. So, and you too. So the three of us were just having a conversation because I was asked, Steve was saying, so what would you like, us to cover? And I was saying, I know something I would really like Stephen to cover. And that is what is going on with the ARPA funds in the towns of Manchester, Rockport, and Essex, because we haven't heard too much about that. We've heard a lot of news from out of Gloucester. The mayor has established a public forum, and Ethan, you can talk about this if you want to talk about what the mayor's done.
Well, yeah, when the mayor, the idea that the funding is coming for COVID relief through the American Rescue Plan Act, and it has to be spent over the next several years, and it has to be committed and accepted over the next several years. So what Gloucester did was they convened a listening group over the spring and the summer to listen to residents to see what they wanted to come up with. And they compiled a 60-page report of all their suggestions.
Right.
Correct. And then the mayor has taken those to heart. And one of the first things they're doing now, there's certain buckets of money that you can put this ARPA money in, infrastructure, public health, I guess affordable housing. There's things to make the city whole. And the first thing that the mayor did was commit $10 million to wastewater treatment because Gloucester lacks secondary treatment, and the waiver from the EPA is running out. And we're talking about upwards of $100 million project. So this will help get the project off the ground. The other thing is roads.
Right.
$3 million for roads, $13 million.
That would be really important for Essex because they have a couple of projects where they're considering elevating roads to get them away from wetlands. There's an April Lane Road, which is in Essex, that goes, it's a historic road, but they want to raise it a few feet to avoid the flooding.
Yeah.
So
that probably, that's probably something that they could use. But I haven't really heard anything from the towns. I know that they have just announced.
Excuse me, Ethan, as I understand it, the Apple Street project is already funded. So
right, actually it is.
Right, yeah, but so anyway, Ethan, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to make that point clear. And it's not with ARPA.
Yeah,
but
I guess it's not ARPA, but I guess it's something they could, if they want to do road work.
Yeah, well, I think your point is
it's always an off, where if you get a big ton of money. I guess the point that you're saying is, what's going on in the three towns. We know what's going on in Gloucester. They put $1.5 million toward economic development initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're hearing that housing is also up next.
Yeah.
And their commitment to affordable housing.
Yeah, $1 million, I believe, to affordable housing. But we should check that number before the is over.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, but and all the towns across the country and municipalities across the country have received this money, and so many of them have already put down on paper, what their projects will be, what projects this money will go into. But we haven't heard too much, if anything, from Rockport, Manchester, and Essex. So
Heather, it's nice to hear you're saying earlier before we started that this money comes directly from the federal government, and in the case of Gloucester, it goes to the mayor's office. And if it goes directly to the municipality and bypassing town meeting approval, board of selectmen approval, it just sounds like it's more fluid. It'd be spent much more quickly.
Yeah, that's the case in Gloucester, where the city council approved the appropriation and went to the mayor, and the mayor decided to create this process. So I think you might have a little homework to do.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, that's one story I would love to hear about. So Steve, tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in Virginia, Northern Virginia, went to Virginia Tech, worked for several radio stations, ABC Radio News in DC for a long time. moved up here where I started making the switch over to print journalism. And this young man next to me, right to my right, to your left, he and I worked together for a community newspaper company for a number of years. And everything I learned about journalism, I learned from this guy right next to me. So,
Aw.
so if you want to blame anybody, blame Ethan.
Yeah, we worked together 22 years ago in the in Danvers at the Danvers office back when it was community newspaper company.
And so, I've been in news reporting. I worked for Channel 7 for a little while as a news writer. Worked for WBZ News, doing morning drive news writing.
Morning drive news writing, that must be pretty intense.
You
Yeah.
have to get there very early.
Yeah, right.
In my
right.
case, I had to be there at about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my
Be there with my seat in the seat at 2 o'clock, ready to go.
Wow.
Challenge. I mean, it was fun. It was working at
So-
WBZ was really something. But
I bet. And are you just reading the AP wire as it comes through and like trying to figure out what is news that day?
yes, and yes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people actually ask that. How do you determine what's news? There are a lot of different sources. There was a producer that definitely guided the process. And most small radio stations, as a news reporter, anchor, you're everything. You're the news director. You make all those decisions. At WBZ, it was there were producers, editors, and then the news writers. Then, of course, the anchors and reporters who actually heard. And in many cases at WBZ, they share resources with the television side. So you'll hear the same names on doing reports for both TV and radio.
Right. I have heard that. So what is it about community newspapers that you might have has drawn you back to that? To this
I like to sleep. So when you're in radio or television, you don't get a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
I'm a family man, so I like to hang out with my daughter as much as I can, and I also play a lot of golf. So you can't do that anymore. A broadcast operation, not as much.
Well, I hate to warn you, but there are a lot of town meetings. You're covering 3 towns, and there are a lot of
Covered Essex already so far. It was very efficient. As far as I have done a lot of town meeting coverage in the past, and I have to say Essex was very efficient last year. They had 20 articles and they moved through them pretty seamlessly.
Yeah,
and so was Manchester.
right. Manchester's was
Right
really
here.
You did hear about that, right?
I actually, it's funny. The minute I walked into the Essex town meeting, the 2 meetings were the same
Oh,
evening.
that's right. Yeah. Right.
They were already talking about what was going on in Manchester.
Oh, that's really funny. That's really funny. Yeah. Well, that's going to be a really interesting story for you to keep us up to date on, because it's a small town, but there's a lot going on there, right? A lot of threads to pull. You could be pulling at.
I hear did you live in Manchester?
No, I live in Rockport.
Oh, okay, Rockport. I hear they have a beach in Manchester that makes noise. Is that true?
It's Singing Beach.
Yeah.
Singing
And
Beach.
I don't know how many more there are in the world like that, but it literally does. You step in it, and I guess it's the size of the crystals of the sand that grind against each other.
They actually make a sound when they squeak when you
Oh
walk
yeah,
through.
Singing Beach.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah. Well, no, you should go down there. Take your daughter there. So that's not a bad idea. So, but I was actually referring to all the selectmen meetings, select persons meetings, the planning boards, the school committees, those meetings. You'll be covering a lot of those probably, so, but you can usually get home to bed at a reasonable hour, I think. So, yeah. Well, do you have any questions for Ethan and I about these communities?
Sure. Just a general question. What is the one overriding thing that would describe all of the KPN communities that make up this consortium? Is there one thing that each town shares in common, you think?
Water issues, I would say.
Yeah, I noticed there are a lot of boats in this area. A lot of.
Yeah, well, I was actually thinking of, the drought this summer.
Yeah.
And everybody has been struggling with that, and affordable housing. So, I mean, yeah, there is definitely, there's boats and there's rock, so quarries, the quarry industry was a huge industry. And of course, fishing has been a huge industry. The struggles in the fishing industry, that's a little bit less in Manchester, although I think there are a few lobster boats in Manchester still. But
I think they're also struggling with the housing and affordable housing too.
affordable housing is enormous.
And
That's
there's
yeah.
a coming requirement for seasoned towns to create multifamily districts if they're part of the MBTA, if they're an MBTA
Mhm.
community. And I
Yeah,
think
they have to create a zoning
multifamily.
overlay
Yeah,
around any sort of MBTA station. And Essex is required to also, even though it does not have an MBTA station. So, but it is,
MBTA community.
yeah,
I'm guessing, I'm familiar with the 40B planning process and communities that have, I think it was 10% of their housing stock must be affordable for them to bypass or rather sidestep developers coming in with comprehensive permits. And for a time, I covered Lincoln. I was the Lincoln Journal editor. And
Mhm.
oddly enough, in the town of Lincoln, which is a wealthy town, much like the towns around here, they were able to qualify for the status that avoided the comprehensive permits because of Hanscom Air Force Base. And the housing in Hanscom Air Force Base brought them over that 10% limit. A lot of other communities don't do that, so they're subject to developers coming in and building whatever they want, not having carte blanche, but having a lot of control. What is it like for these communities, though? I don't even know. Manchester, Essex, and Rockport.
They do not meet the 10%. They
Okay.
are all,
Gloucester doesn't either.
yeah, Gloucester doesn't either.
So they're all wrestling with on top of everything, on
Right.
top of this new requirement to create a multifamily housing district. If you're an MBTA community, they're struggling with, issues around 40B and how to manage that. So yeah, housing.
And Manchester has an enormous development project going on. Have you heard about Shingle Hill? That is a very expensive and like 136 unit built project, I think. I could have the number wrong there. Google it, Ethan. I haven't thought about this for a while, but it's across the highway from the downtown district, and
It's called Shingle Hill.
Shingle Hill, and it's on School Street, and it's incredibly controversial because it's large. It's going to be up high and sort of loom over the highway. It's in an area that is considered environmentally important, and the developer is using, he's considering it a 40B. It is a 40B project. So he has had, and I'm going to use the wrong language about this because I haven't looked into it for a while, but it looks like it will inevitably go through, and the town is very upset about it. There's been a lot of effort to try to block this.
At the recent town meeting, they had to approve more money for the litigation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was a substantial fee.
Yeah, it went through a lot of public process in this past year. And basically, it got to the point, I don't really know what state it's at now, but this is something that you should definitely be looking into. It's probably the biggest story.
Manchester.
Yeah, and yes, in Manchester, and they denied that comprehensive permit. So that's usually goes to the Housing Appeals Committee.
Right.
And they don't shine favorably on communities just in general that don't meet the 10% threshold.
Right.
So,
sounds like they haven't much of a chance.
There's not really much they can do.
No, there really is not anything they can do.
Appeal of a comprehensive permit. I've heard it's like 99% of them get, go through,
That litigation you referred to reminds me of the story when I was the Lincoln Journal editor. The town of Lincoln spent a lot of money for lawyers and their litigation when the Telecommunications Act of 1994 went through, and they were trying to build a cell tower on Route 2 in Lincoln. And the town said, "Oh, we're going to fight it." They didn't do so well.
Well, there's a cell tower issue in Essex also. That's another good story for you to follow up on. So a group of citizens has tried to block that unsuccessfully, I believe, and there may be litigation. I'm saying all things just as a pedestrian, you know, not really having my facts right. Just giving you suggestions for good
Oh,
stories.
these are great. Thank you very much. This is
Yeah.
basically an editorial meeting as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Great for me too.
Exactly. So so anyway, those are big issues. I mean, the nice things are the you know, the geography here is just so beautiful. It's you know, beaches and rocky cliffs that go down to beaches and lots of open space, and these are the things that people love here too. So yeah, it's along with the vitality that you see in Gloucester, the sort of unique electricity of that place.
Unique is
And
the
a
word.
lot of it's right next to me right now.
There you go. I'm new to Gloucester, so you know.
No, you're doing a great job, Ethan.
Thank you.
So let's wrap this editorial meeting up, and so Stephen, I hope we can talk soon. You know, once you you have had a couple of stories in the paper. I do know that.
Pardon me?
I have seen a couple of your stories in the paper. So so I look forward to being able to catch up with you here about some of those stories.
Very good. I'd like to meet with you and talk with you about these ideas that you have.
Yeah. And Ethan, anything that you got going on in Gloucester that we should know about?
Well,
there's always something, I know.
yeah, well, I was at the council meeting last night.
Yeah.
There's an issue around, you know, I got to be careful. There was a no trespass. Schools have said they have a no trespass order against Councilor at Large Jeff Worthley. That is as much as we know, and so a lot of it remains kind of a mystery. Councilor Worthley says whatever went on at the school during election when he was voting was it's not anything. So especially the lawyer, his lawyer is also saying that it's nebulous. So let's give everybody the benefit of the doubt here.
Was the lawyer at the meeting?
No. So I'll give you an update. This was the city council met on Tuesday night.
Okay.
So we're talking about that kind of timing.
Okay.
And last night the attorney at Pasquina couldn't attend.
Okay.
So he's telling me, he's talking to me, he's saying, okay, there's going to be an executive session, and he's telling me that he couldn't attend. He had a shellfish advisory commission meeting conflict with another client. So
the lawyer did. Okay.
Yeah, so that meeting's been continued to December 13th.
Okay.
At 4:45. And again, you know, talking to the attorney, talking to the Council Worthley, there's this sense that they were blindsided by this no trespass order. We really don't have the details. I've asked the city to provide the order. And so I think a lot more will come out in the next few weeks. So let's be careful. People's reputations are important. Let's not rush to judgment.
Yeah, and it's always difficult to talk about the issues happening in the schools because you want to protect the students and the staff there too. So
exactly.
Yeah, right. Without making things incendiary. Well, thank you so much for that reporting. And
yes, and then also there was an update on the school project as well. The new elementary school. The city has finally inked an agreement with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, so they'll start getting reimbursements in December.
Oh, that's
there was
great.
a litigation around Mados Field that was an appeals. Save Mados Field group had fought the taking of the softball field. You know, the school it's two schools in one, being built on a portion of Mados Field had to be taken for the school. It's the old site of the old Veterans Memorial building. And so that is that now that litigation has ended, the Supreme Court denied taking up an appellate review, and we have now state reimbursement. It's pretty incredible that project started without MSBA reimbursement.
Right, because of the litigation that was dependent upon that.
Yes, that is what the city officials are saying now. Whether Whether there was some other reasons, I don't know, but that's what the the mayor was saying last night. And they gave a great update. They gave a little tour of the school, what it looks like inside. They're starting to actually drywall in the classrooms. It looks like that project's coming along. It's gonna be a fantastic school. In other words, the renderings that they showed us a picture of the rendering from before the school was built and what it looks like now, and it looks like it's coming together and for on time and on budget for the summer of 2023 next year.
That's great. Very exciting for those kids and their teachers. Very exciting. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. Good news. And I'll see you, Ethan, after the holiday, and I hope to see you soon, Stephen.
I look forward to meeting you, Heather.
Heather, thanks very much.
All right. Take care, you guys.
Yes, thank you. Happy Black Friday.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.